Valero is that kind of guy who's knocked out everybody, so we can't even really quantify the type of power that he had.
They come out of nowhere. You know, Valero's showing some good combinations. That's a great jab by DeMarco. Valero is a good combination.
Everything that's coming.
Oh, good left there by Pacquiao.
Lead by Manny Pacquiao. Body shot again. Oh.
Yo, this is Trav with Yo Trav Sports Bag. As you can see, I'm not in the kitchen again because we're going to talk some boxing. And I couldn't fit more than one person in that tiny kitchen. As you can see, Bias is here, so you know we're about to talk about some boxing. But before we do that, take care of that YouTube stuff. That means subscribe to the channel. That also means give me a thumbs up and hit the alarm bell so that you get all of our drops, whether it's boxing right now or anything else that I drop along the way. Also, don't forget, I'm still on the quest to get 1,000 subscribers, my first 1,000. I'm not going to stop there, but I want to get to 1 million, and I believe getting to 1 million starts with 1,000 at least. Let's go ahead and do that. So without further ado, if you saw the thumbnail, you know what this is about. Edwin Valero, the dead boxer who was 27-0, but while he was alive, he was a house on fire. The fantasy matchup people were thinking about was him and Manny Pacquiao, the great legendary Manny Pacquiao. What would have happened if these two would have met, whether at super featherweight or lightweight? Let us know. Bias, tell me what you think would have happened in this fight here.
You know what? I think there's a little bit of a parallel between this fantasy matchup and Salvador Sanchez versus Alexis Arguello. You know, that's a fight that was close to happening, and it would have been a barn burner.
Yeah,
probably an all-time.
Don't know about that.
It's all right. Probably an all-time classic. And this one, you know, both fighters had dynamite in both hands, and I give the edge to Pacquiao, but there would have been fireworks.
Yeah, there absolutely would have been fireworks. And you look at their records, of course, and Manny Pacquiao had a total of 72 fights that included 62 of those wins, 8 losses, 2 draws. But when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, you say just 39 KOs. You have to put that in perspective, and I will, or start taking into account Edwin Valero, 27-0, 27 knockouts. His first 18 fights were in the first round, all KOs. So there's a way you can look at that, because you know the boxing business. You can set up the bowling pins and you can knock them down. If you have the right connections in terms of your promoter and the people you're around, your management, etc., you can do these things, set it up, get the confidence. It's not to say your fighter doesn't have talent or ability, but you can get that confidence along the way, plus getting this nice looking record to set your charge up as a promoter, as a manager, to look good in front of everybody in terms of his record before he even fights where people know him.
Right. They brought him along perfect. Unfortunately, you know, circumstances are what they were, and you know his career was cut short. So we don't really know how great he could have been. We don't know how good or great he really was. You know, looking at his resume, you have to be a hardcore boxing fan to recognize some of those names. And casual fans, they look at it, they may not know who DeMarco is. You know, was he ever tested? What great fighter did he ever fight? You know, did he have a signature victory? Yes, he won titles, but who did he fight?
Exactly, and that's what's going on right now. As we know, we've talked about it in the past with all of these different champions splintered about. And when someone is a belt holder, they're not exactly the lineal champ or the overall champ, period. And so you just don't know. You cannot quantify his greatness or even goodness just based on his resume. I mean, you look at Manny Pacquiao, this is time-tested and proven, and among the greatest to ever do it inside of a boxing ring. 12 titles in 8 different classes. Of course, we have all these hybrid classes right now, so it isn't the traditional 8 classes that boxing is known for. But Manny did what Manny did along the way, from being a little guy to being a little bit bigger guy. and still dominating along the way, you can arguably say that he was probably the most dominant fighter of his era. And that's an anomaly because Mayweather was in the same era and they were both dominating, but in different ways.
Right. And Pacquiao, you look at his resume and it's a who's who. He fought just about everybody. The Mayweather fight probably happened 5 to 6 years too late, but he still fought Mayweather.
Yep.
I can't think of one fighter that I would say, why didn't Pacquiao fight that guy? Or why didn't that guy fight Pacquiao? You know, there's a couple fighters he could have fought, but you can't say that we missed out on anything. He gave us a lot of great fights.
And on top of that, he gave opportunity after opportunity. If you gave him trouble the first time, he gave you an opportunity for a rematch or a trilogy or for a fourth fight like he did with Marquez. I mean, he might have lost that fight, but there was no problem, just like Muhammad Ali. He gave opportunities to those who gave him problems. And you know what? To an extent, Floyd Mayweather did the same. The difference with Floyd is he was so doggone good and ahead of himself that there wasn't anyone really giving him enough competition to where he needed to grant a rematch. And he's done it twice with Castillo and he did it with Maidana, 2 fights that were questionable, but he came back and fixed it in his rematch. And, you know, Manny Pacquiao, like you said, a who's who of people that he had fought. Right now, a minimum of 5 Hall of Famers that he fought, because right now Mayweather's still lurking about, and you never know, with the Hall of Very Good instead of the Hall of Fame, he did beat Keith Thurman, so that guy may get into the Hall of Fame one day. So a minimum of 5 Hall of Famers he's beaten right now, 3-time Fight of the Year as well.
Yeah, I mean, you cannot. I'm at a loss for words. You can't say enough about Pacquiao in his career. You know, coming up from where he started, was it 112 pounds, 108? I can't remember where he started.
Way down there, flying.
Where he came, exactly. But where he ended up, I mean, beating Keith Thurman, as old as he was, as many fights as he had, you know, rounds in the ring, getting knocked out by Marquez years ago. I mean, that's a top-notch victory right there.
And that's true.
Since Thurman stepped up in competition, he may no longer be one-time, but he's still a talented boxer. You know, and he's not a pushover.
And you know, I like that you brought that up about Keith Thurman, because it brings us right back to Valero. Valero is that kind of guy who's knocked out everybody, so we can't even really quantify the type of power that he had. You know, there's a lot of stories going around saying how strong he was, whether it was in sparring or you watched him during the fight. But you still look at the quality of fighters that he fought. Just like Keith Thurman, Thurman was one time all of this time, and though until this day, his last real solid big time knockout was 2014. We're talking nearly 10 years ago, where Keith Thurman was really one time. He's been some time or no time, just show up and pay me on time. That's what he's been so far since he's been back in the game.
Right. And you mentioned sparring. I thought there was rumors that Valero and Pac-Man actually sparred. I can't remember exactly, but what happens in sparring doesn't indicate what would happen in an actual prize fight. You know, Mikey Garcia, he sparred both, and he claims Valero hit harder than Pacquiao. But that doesn't mean Valero would beat Pacquiao.
Exactly.
You know, people like to say styles make fights. People like to say there's levels to this. You know, Pacquiao's level was way up here. Valero never even attempted to get up there.
You know what? I think he would have tried. I do think he would have tried, because they would push him in that direction. But when I saw the skills that he had fighting the fighters that he had fought, I just didn't see it. You know what? Other than being a fellow southpaw and having some firepower, I mean, he's been knocked down, he's been bloodied, he's been kind of ragged about. He had that inner force inside of him that kind of gave him that demonic drive. But we did not see that against the top of the top in order for us to truly quantify what he has done. You know, he never heard the final bell, so we look at that 27-0 deal. And he fought a lot outside of the U.S., so that has a lot to be said too. Because you fight out of the U.S., they can set you up to fight whoever the heck they want you to set up. We don't even know who they are. Cab drivers, bus drivers, waiters, waitresses. We don't know what they are when they come over here. We've seen fighters do that before. You know, Acelino Freitas is one of those guys that comes to mind, who had all of those knockouts when he came to the U.S. from Brazil. And his power wasn't, when you saw him fight, the knockouts weren't indicative or commensurate with the power you would have thought would have come from a knockout record like that. And ultimately, when he raised his level of competition, the knockouts stopped coming.
Right. But getting back to sparring, you can't put a lot of stock in it. If you watch that Spotify versus Mayweather sparring session, Spotify got the best of him. But if they fought in an actual prize fight, he's not going to beat Floyd. Come on. You can see in that video, Floyd was gassed. And he probably learned from that sparring session, I need to keep my ass in shape from now on. And if you follow his career, there came a point where he was always in shape. And that may have been the situation to make him think, I need to keep my ass in shape. So sparring, it doesn't mean a lot. You can't put a lot of stock into sparring.
Exactly. I see it all the time. I mean, you could go to gyms and you can see guys, you wonder, why isn't this guy a contender? He's just beating everybody in the gym, and he never makes a name for himself once he gets into a fight that matters, even if it's a novice fight. As a pro, 4-rounder, he can't even win a 4-rounder because he left his fight in the gym. You get these ring wars, these sparring wars, and people get enamored with that, and they take it for more than what it's worth. I mean, what was it? Greg Page knocked down Mike Tyson. Greg Page probably would have died fighting Mike Tyson if he fought him in a real fight. But you know what? Unfortunately, that also made Greg Page want to go back into boxing. But to the point at hand, I think one of the caveats that many don't listen to right here or even pay attention to, Valero did have a brain injury from a motorcycle accident just before starting his pro career. That might have had a lot to do with what eventually happened in his career and in his life being so violent, kind of CTE.
Right. So getting to the actual matchup, where's the fight going to take place? Because you mentioned the brain injury. He didn't fight in the U.S. states because he couldn't get a license. He fought in Texas, but could he get a license in Vegas? Could he get a license in New York? Especially in Vegas where testing is more stringent than it is in Texas. So where does that fight even happen? But if they made the fight, let's say they fight outside the states, Pacquiao beats him. He's better technically. His footwork would drive Valero crazy. He's not going to stand right in front of Valero and let him hit him. I think Pacquiao takes him out probably within 10.
I think 8 or 9 rounds will be it. And I think it will be a butchering from the 3rd round on. I mean, Valero, like I said, he had 18 first-round knockouts, set a record and whatnot, so he likes to get it done early. Pacquiao also likes to get it done early. The deal is he can keep it up for 12 rounds, and we've seen it, and he's done it against some of the top fighters ever. A lot of the top fighters
when he
ever.
first came on the scene, I thought he was the Energizer Bunny. That dude had so much energy. He never seemed gassed. If the fights went into the later rounds, he was still doing his thing, bouncing around, jumping in and out.
Even now.
Using his footwork to move around. That guy's motor was amazing.
Yeah, that's craziness, the way his motor was exactly. And he has this herky-jerky style, and then he's a southpaw. He doesn't make it easy for anybody. I mean, you really have to be a masterful fighter in order to even be in competition with him. The fight that he had with Mayweather was later on in both of their careers, so I'm not even going to mention that. But back to the Valero comparison and contrast, I think he easily takes on Valero. We're in this age of where people either take too much stock in knockouts, if there are consecutive knockouts, or too much stock in just being undefeated. He had both undefeated and he had knockouts. So you get these people who just love numbers and they don't care about how these numbers came about. And because there's a belt involved, they want to give more credit than they should. I don't think that he has a chance against Pacquiao. And you have some people, a puncher's chance. Bro, Pacquiao's been punched before. And he's been punched by bigger guys, 135 and 130 pounds. This is where Valero was. Pacquiao has no problem with him, in my opinion.
I have to agree 100%. Pacquiao, like I said, within 10. And you said it would be a butchering, something like that?
Yeah,
maybe
butchering.
It would be
pure.
There would be blood. There would be blood, yes.
Yeah, there would be blood, I believe, from both of them because Pacquiao could bleed and he did. But Valero, he did bleed. I tell you what, he fought DeMarco and he bled. but the bleeding didn't come because he was getting his butt kicked. It was an elbow. DeMarco threw I think it was a left hand, and his elbow, some awkward way, ended up hitting Valero in the head and just bloodied him. And he ended up winning that fight. But once again, it was DeMarco. And the next time we heard of DeMarco with anything significant was against Adrian Broner? Wasn't that the next time he had done anything? I mean, yeah, exactly. So, this is the quality of fighter that he had. You can't take anything away from him, but what is there to take away from Valero? I don't think there's anything to take away because he didn't do enough against top flight competition. No Hall of Famers on his record. Forget about it. And yeah, they might have been on his record as he moved on and grew as a boxer, but what, on the winning side or the losing side? So that's what I'm talking about.
Right. I give him his due. I'll give him his due. He was a two division champion. He fought. I mean, he beat everybody he fought. He knocked out everybody he fought. But that's pretty much where it ends. He fought nobody of note. I feel like I'm talking bad about him, but the facts are the facts.
That's true. The facts are the facts. He did not fight anybody of real merit. Of course, we're in an era right now where everybody's a champion. They can call themselves a champion. And when you beat this guy, you're now the champion. And then you've beaten other champions. Years ago, this same person would have been nothing more than a contender. That's it, a contender. You would have been the champ, and all of these WBC, WBA, IBF, IBO, and all of these other titles fights would have been contenders. That's it. So you wouldn't have the benefit of saying, I fought 5 champions in one weight class, because you would have been the champion just fighting contenders trying to get your title. But that's how it ends right now. If you like our conversation about Valero versus Pacquiao, let us know. Put it in the comments and join us again next time. In the meantime, check out some of these videos that I have. This is a sports channel, not just a boxing channel. So if you're interested in this, you may be interested in some of these videos as well. There's football, there's basketball, and of course, there's more boxing if you're interested in it. This is Trav, along with Bias, with Yo Trav's Sports Bag. Thanks for joining us.